i-netradio.com. i-netradio.com. Добрый день, it's Добрый Jalavat. This is Springtime in Moscow with your hosts James Tuthill and Steven Stimson. We've got some Russian with a little American, and we're serious with a little humor. So Jim, what's going on in the world today?
Steve, thank you for the nice introduction. I'm Jim Tuthill, and this is Springtime in Moscow. We're here on i-netradio.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our server's in Quebec, Canada. I'm in Miami, Florida. Our guest today, Jake Danishevsky, is in New Jersey. Our support staff is in Mauritius in the middle of the Indian Ocean. So we are spanning the globe today. We are also on powertalk.com, PWRTALK.com, 3 times a day, and we are the feature show every Friday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. As always, we want to congratulate the owner of powertalk.com, Lillian Caldwell, for having achieved 3 million listeners for the year 2012. Great job, Lillian. We want to remind everybody that Christina Botnari, who is a very accomplished and award-winning violinist and who is the daughter of Yuri Botnari, who many times has conducted the Moscow Philharmonic and the Moscow Symphony. In fact, I have one of his CDs plugged into my computer as we speak. Christina brings us every day the Classical Music Hour, which is also sponsored by the Russian Music Society, which is dedicated to the preservation of classical music throughout the world. The show is on every day at 12 noon and 8 p.m. New York and Miami time. We also have the beautiful and comedic Elizabeth Alberti and her sidekick J.W. Long, the creative genius of Southern Lovin', which is a little bit of down-home Southern humor set in Ashdown, Arkansas. Elizabeth and J.W. perform every day at 11 in the morning and 6 p.m. New York time. We also have DJ Sasha from Calgary, Canada, originally from St. Petersburg, Russia, who brings us techno music every day at 10 in the morning and 5 and 9 in the evening New York time. We want to remind everybody out there that we're always looking to add new shows to our lineup. If you know anybody who wants to play music, sports, talk, I guess religion, anything you want to talk about, bring it on. You can contact us at Spin Moscow, S-P-I-N Moscow, all one word, at AOL.com. Jake, how are you today?
I'm great, Jim. How you doing?
Good. Jake, you and I last week, or maybe this week, we recorded one week and it was played a few days after. We were talking about socialism and socialism around the world and what the definition of socialism is and whether it exists and where it exists and whether it has any, debilitating effects upon society as a whole. We talked a little bit about the United States of America. I think that if you had your druthers, you would not like to see the United States turned into really a socialistic society. Let me ask you a question. In my humble opinion, if you look around and you go out into the world and you buy a newspaper in the morning, and you have a egg sandwich in the morning, and you get into your car, and you go to wherever you go to work, and you're at your home, and, you know, even if you go to your synagogue or your church or wherever you're going to, it seems to me that the concept of private property, ownership of private property, including the means of production, seem to be firmly in control of corporations, individuals, but private interests in the United States. Would you agree that really, I don't think that you have the government or the proletariat or anybody really owning private property too much in this country? Do you agree with that?
I agree, but not fully.
Okay,
And
tell me.
I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Do you remember a couple of years ago there was a family that lived on the property that all of the sudden government, EPA specifically, they said that it was environmental property, and all of the sudden they wanted to uproot and move this family against their will from this property. So in reality, they actually thought they had a case. Obviously, the family took them to court. It cost them a lot of money, and they won. But the problem is that all of a sudden the government decided that that family needed to be uprooted from what they deemed to portray as a public environmental property. This family owned this property for years and years. So, I mean, yes, we do have private property and we have laws that protect it. But there's always that element where the government tries to outreach and outdo itself, so to speak.
Well, it's interesting that you say that we have laws to protect that, because even though I'm not adverse to this mix of what I see as socialism and capitalism, and I see some downside to capitalism at times. If you remember about, I don't know, 4, 5, or 6 years ago, the United States Supreme Court up in Connecticut, I think it was in the New London area, said that a municipality, I believe, could take a piece of property for really private use under the guise of public use. What they wanted to do was take sort of a blighted piece of property and buy it out from the owner and then turn it over to a developer who promised the city that it would bring in business and improve economics, and it would be a beautiful site, and it would be aesthetically pleasing, and you'd have all sorts of tourists and people. And the U.S. Supreme Court said, under the guise of public interest, that the public domain could condemn that property and then turn it over to private enterprise. So they did take somebody's private property.
Yes, and that was wrong. I remember that. That was completely wrong. But that, once again, that's an outreach of government that's improper and against the law. Because what they did, they said that we need this for public property, and then they turned around and resold it where the private owner could have done it themselves. I remember that case, yes.
Now, the funny thing about that, Jake, is that case, I think, was pretty close to a unanimous decision where the justices said, well, it's for a public purpose. You're getting rid of a crummy piece of property and you're going to turn it into a vibrant piece of property, which is a public purpose. You have to acknowledge that we have 5 rather conservative justices on the Supreme, or at least 4 rather conservative justices on the Supreme Court. And they usually vote the Republican line, and they're pretty capitalistic, but they went for that.
Well, listen, I mean, everybody makes mistakes. Am I arguing? Wait, Jim.
Yes.
Did I argue with you last time that Republicans don't make mistakes? They do make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, but there's intentional policies, and there are mistakes. Does Obama make mistakes sometimes? Yes, but does he intentionally and calculated makes decisions that will hurt this country? Absolutely. And that's what I'm trying to say, that socialism intentionally being done to this society. And I mean, yes, I mean that case was almost disgusting what they did. I'm admitting that the justices, what they did, that was kind of disgusting.
Well,
I agree with you.
Let's take it another step.
Sure.
As you know, well, I think, and yet I'm not Russian, but I know a little bit about Russia, having done this show for 210 shows. Okay. In Russia, you had a situation where I think that the state controlled most of the enterprises under the USSR,
All of that. All of
All
the
of them. Yeah.
enterprise.
And now I think that you do have at least pseudo private companies like Gazprom extracting the oil and the natural gas, if you're with me. But
Yes.
I think you would have to agree with me that here in the United States, the natural resources, the zinc, the copper, the oil, the natural gas, the gravel, the sand, I don't know, you name it, is all extracted, owned, controlled, and sold by private enterprise. I don't see the government doing that here in the United States. Do you?
Well, they allow permits, but
Yeah.
yes, I agree. I agree. It's private enterprise, but the government has to allocate and allow permits where they can do it and how they can do it.
Yeah. And, you know, you and I talked about something on the last show. We talked about, as an example, in terms of roads, contracts are given really to private companies. You don't see the government building roads or bridges or anything like that. It's
So
private enterprise that builds it.
right. So I mean, so last time you brought the roads as an example of socialism, but in
Yes.
reality, it's a private enterprise, so it's not socialism. I
Well,
mean,
private enterprise builds it, but then the
well,
government owns it. Yeah.
well, not to mention that we pay for those roads with tolls. I mean, have you driven in New Jersey lately? You pay tolls for almost every road. I mean, you drive and you pay.
Well, when you get to the center part of Florida around Orlando, New Jersey has not seen the toll roads that the
I
center
pity you.
that the center part of Florida has.
So they're not socialistic policies because you pay for them. You pay for them and you pay for them
Yes,
if you
we
want to
pay.
use them.
We pay. There's no doubt about that.
Okay.
Uh, okay. And as we know, you and I were talking before the show went on a little bit about schools.
Hmm.
And in Florida, and probably in most states, I don't know, but at least in Florida, it's property taxes which fund the schools. Okay.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah. And I think that you and I agree that children should go to school and get an education. Okay.
Well, listen, I agree with you. Go ahead. You finish and then I'll give.
Yes. But unfortunately, there are times when students don't take advantage of the education, and they seem to come out of the public schools. And the public schools have some good teachers, and they have some bad teachers, and they have some middle of the road teachers. I would say I always thought about 30% of public school teachers were good or very good, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just too hard on teachers. Uh, and then sometimes these kids come out and they're just not productive, which seems to be sort of a slap in the face to society or whatever. But I guess you can't make people be productive, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think about the schools and the school system and some of these kids who just never see, in my humble opinion, never really contribute much to society?
Well, first of all, let's take a look at our educational system.
Yeah.
We lowered the curve, and I think I touched on that a little bit when I was talking about production in Soviet Union. But let's forget about socialism. Let's forget about everything for a second.
Yeah.
We're lowering the curve so the teachers can show that the majority of students pass. Now, whether these students learn anything makes no difference. They want to show that they pass. So now, let's say you can pass at a very high level where you actually learn something, or if you lower the curve, everybody passes in your class and you show that this school has done a great job, then it doesn't matter what these kids learn as long as everybody passed. So the passing is the point here, not the learning. And you're right, like you said. I mean, some teachers actually come to school to teach. An example: my son has special needs. My son has a spectrum of autism, and he goes to special needs school. And
Mm-hmm.
all of the teachers in that school are angels. I mean, I honestly say, doesn't matter of politics, doesn't matter of anything. These teachers are all amazing teachers who love the kids and who love to teach. I speak to them, and they're just amazing teachers. Now, there are some teachers that come to school because there's nothing else they want to do. They just go to school because that's their career. That's it. And that's a problem. Now, do I have a solution? I have a slight suggestion for a solution, giving people a choice, a voucher program, where you compete for students and you compete for funding. And when you move to our town, you know you're going to pay higher taxes, and these taxes pay for school. Now, you don't have to move to our town, but then you're going to face a slightly different school program. Our school program in our town is actually very, very good. So then you have a choice. It's not socialism. You have a choice. You move to this town, you know you pay higher taxes. Those taxes pay for school. Now, you don't want the school system, you move somewhere else. Now, if they give voucher program within cities, these people will also have a choice. Even though they can afford to go to a different school, they'll have a choice of schools. Do you agree with me?
Well, I'm going to talk to you about all that. First, I just want to tell you what I think is a humorous little story. Maybe nobody else will think it's funny. But it's always been kind of rumored in Ivy League schools like Harvard, Yale, Princeton. And I think that the younger President George Bush even kind of made a joke about this. I think even in those schools, which are probably the most prestigious schools, or amongst the most prestigious schools, they have something called a gentleman's C. And you don't have to do too much to get a C. The reason being is that everybody that goes to those schools has high SAT scores. They generally have high GPAs. They've been involved in 12 million extracurricular activities. They're the apple of their mother's eye and the pride of their father. You know what kind of kid I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So the school says to themselves, well, God almighty, if they got into our school, they must be smart. So we have to give them at least a C. You ever heard of a gentleman's C? You ever heard of it?
I haven't heard of that before.
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
And I think George Bush kind of admitted he got a few gentleman's C's. Okay. I was the chairman of the board of a charter school, and it was called Survivors Charter School. And I didn't get paid any money. I didn't make any money. I just did it as a community service. But there's an old saying, no good deed shall go unpunished. Okay?
Okay.
I got punished very severely in that situation, trying to be a good guy. Okay? And in that school, we took all the dropped outs, the flunked outs, and the kicked outs. And there we started with about 700 or 800 students on the first day. And every year we would end up with about 430 graduates. And to graduate, they had to pass what we call the FCAT exam. In New York State, you have the Regents exam, which is a pretty hard test. In Florida, we have the FCAT, which really isn't too hard, but they had to pass that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is that the county funds the charter schools, and the charter schools compete for the students. They sort of have to recruit the students. Now, one year, I had one kid went to Princeton, you'll never believe that, and another year I had a kid go to Yale. So that was pretty good considering where these kids had come from. And about 70% went somewhere, including trade schools. A lot of kids went to trade schools, but there's nothing wrong with trade schools, okay? And in Florida, they're trying to do a voucher system, but it really isn't here. So what happened, for a while, we were in the No Child Left Behind program, which some people like and some people abhor and hate. But under the system, under No Child Left Behind, if you don't like where you're going to public school, you can get transferred to a school of your choice. Did you know that?
No, I didn't realize that. I thought No Child Left Behind is will lower the curve to let everybody pass. That's what I thought.
No Child Left Behind is where you get a private tutor. And
I didn't see.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
and I went out and I taught poor children how to read. You have to be in the free lunch program in order to qualify.
Okay.
But you can transfer to another school. So they are doing a little bit of that already.
So okay, so that's good. At least people have a choice, and
Yes.
students because basically it shouldn't be a society deciding for the child how
Yeah.
they're gonna learn. It should be between the teachers, the parents, and the child.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Having said all that, let's move on to the nuclear topic for today.
Okay.
All right.
What's nuclear?
I think we have to agree, I think we have, that there is at least a little private enterprise left in the United States.
Well, wait. Jim,
Yeah.
you succeeded. You succeeded because of the opportunity
Yeah.
and the system that the American society provides. Do you
Yes.
agree?
Yes.
You retired early because of that.
That's true.
So, I mean, so you should appreciate that system in some way.
That's true. I agree. Okay. So we still have a little private enterprise.
We
left,
do. We
and
do.
we still have some private property left. And we still have, I would say, the means of production in the hands of private interests.
Well,
So-
we do, of course. Of
Yeah.
course. That's what we're fighting for, to
Yes.
keep it.
Okay. Before we go into the nuclear subject,
Nuclear.
one of the things I've always found funny is that the National Rifle Association, for the first 4 years of President Obama's tenure, said that he's going to take all our guns away from
And
us.
he's trying. He
Well-
is trying.
Honest to God, the first 4 years that he was president, I don't think I ever heard the man utter the word gun.
Well, can I be honest and can I be just
Yeah.
towards President? You say President Obama.
Yes, you
In
like
the first
to
4
call him
years,
Mr.
the first 4 years he hasn't done anything. So it's fair to say he hasn't done anything against guns or against anything because he hasn't done anything.
Okay. Now,
Okay. So
do you think that he has led us into socialism?
he's led us into that direction of socialism. Yes, he
Okay.
did.
Tell, if,
I'll give you an example.
no, better than that. I'm dying to hear if you could just list the top 5. Maybe there's 5,000, but if you could just list the 5 top ways he's done that.
Okay. I'll give you first example. Obamacare.
Okay.
Obamacare is 1/6 of our economy. Now, our economy was already bad. And I agree, it was Bush and Democratic Congress that led us into that path towards the end of Bush's term. But Obama took us into $7 trillion of new debt. Now, we already have a bad economy and we have a problem with our insurance, not our medical health care, but our insurance. So to reform it, as he's called it, he created a much bigger program that nobody actually read, because if you remember, Nancy Pelosi called it, we have to approve it in order to see what's in it. Who does that? Who does that when they try to push a program behind the closed doors without any bipartisan in the room, and then they say we're the most transparent? Now, I've heard people say that, but those people were not exactly in America. Okay, so that's your biggest, that's your first. Okay?
Yes, I'm listening. I'm writing this. I'm writing it down as fast
Go
as I
ahead, go
can.
ahead. So Obamacare with the 2,700 pages and another 15,000 pages of policies basically was pushed behind the closed door against the will of people that might have brought up an example of how to make it better if we wanted to make it at all. And of course, he said that the Supreme Court judges had to approve it. It's almost like he said, you have to, otherwise we have a problem, and the problem is not with the society. The problem he would have, because he's trying to push everything like a dictator, not like a president of the United States.
Well,
And
but Jake, it was approved by the Supreme Court that decided.
I know.
It was
I know it was
approved
approved.
as no. It was approved as a tax,
Yes,
not.
and that's a problem in itself,
Yeah.
because he said taxes will not go up because of this for middle class.
Yeah.
There's a 21 tax that's been increased. Have you seen your paycheck? I mean, you're retired.
Yes.
My paycheck has gone down since the beginning of this year, and so has everybody else. And a lot of Democrats looked at their paycheck and they said, wait a second, but the president promised my taxes will not go up. Because when he says the rich will pay for it, according to socialism, everybody who makes money is rich. Okay? Now, second, you asked me for 5, so let me give you 5. That was one.
I'll take them. All
right.
Yes. I'm dying to hear them. Okay.
I'm giving them to you. I hope I have 5, but trust me, I have few that are big enough that 5 is not even the question.
Okay.
He says equal and fair share. He says everybody should do their own share. Now, has the president actually paid more taxes this year or less taxes? Tell me how much the president paid in taxes this year, please.
I think he paid 18%.
Excellent. Now, he says rich people like me, he paid less than average American, and he preaches, I hate hypocrisy and lying. And when the lying happens, it's not good. So if the president of the United States says one thing but does another, he's basically saying that everybody rich like me, excluding me and my family. Now, he said Warren Buffett is upset because he pays lower percentage than his secretary. And what does Warren Buffett do? He goes to court to fight to pay less taxes. How's that for socialist elites who choose to make laws and for everybody to pay more taxes, but they themselves pay less and they fight to pay less? Okay, that's another. He says that we should be charitable and we should be our brother's keeper, that we're Americans and we should help other Americans to succeed, he calls it. But honestly, he says we should give a handout. Now, charitable Americans give 3% of their income on the average to charity. You agree?
I don't know, but I have no reason to doubt you.
Okay, 3% on the average Americans. Romney gives 10% every year. I mean, he doesn't do it for political gain. He's been doing it since he was rich.
Jake, how do we know that? He only disclosed his last tax return.
Okay, he's disclosed 2 years, and every presidential candidate is supposed to, by law, by traditional, not even by law, disclose 2 years, okay? So now, Romney disclosed 2 years, and it showed that he gives 10%. And now, Obama and Biden gave less than the average. Biden gave 1.5%. But see, Romney doesn't preach we should all give more. Obama does. Obama says, be your brother's keeper. In the meantime, he's nobody's keeper, and he takes, but he doesn't give. So now, if you preach to the choir, at least try to live by example. That's another example to you, okay? Now, he creates class warfare on every chance he gets. And another thing he does that no other president ever did, and I'm talking about other presidents, Carter, Clinton, Reagan, Bush's, anybody, he uses every speech to point a finger at Republicans. Now, how can you work with the other side if you keep pointing finger and blaming everything on the other side? Now, your favorite president, Ronald Reagan, and I know you don't like Reagan, but Reagan had great capability of working with the other side, and you agreed with me on that. Reagan was able to reach out to Tip O'Neill, and he invited him to White House. They had drinks, and next day, they helped America to fix things. Whether you like Reagan or not, he had that capability to find what unites us rather than what separates us. Obama tries to separate America. Why? Because that's what socialists do. They create groups, they create unrest, and then they say government can come in and help you. And that's socialism.
Okay.
Okay? How did I do? Did I give you enough?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure that any of those reasons, other than the first, are indicative of what Mr. Obama has done to lead us into socialism or create socialism. I haven't seen any socialistic policies outside of possibly the Affordable Health Care Act. But let's say you're right or you're wrong or whatever. I just want to go through one thing with you in terms of the United States, okay? maybe you're the type of person that wants to change things or turn them around, or the Koch brothers, they have a thing where they want less government. I'm not so sure that that's exactly what they want, but that's what they say. They claim that they're trying to make changes and make the country better. I'm not sure about. I disagree, but who knows? Okay, let's go through this. There are 3 reasons why you may not like the direction that the country is headed. You may not like socialism. Whatever you don't like. There are 3 reasons why you and I are just, as we used to say in Long Island, pissing in the wind. Why you and I are just pissing in the wind. Okay.
I know the phrase.
Yes. Okay. I think maybe we have too much private enterprise or whatever. Number 1,
absolutely,
we are never going to change things as long as these 3 things happen. First of all, let's take federal officials. As you know, after Franklin Roosevelt was elected 4 times, and then Harry Truman came in for a 5th term. Once Eisenhower got in, and for a little bit he had a Republican Congress, I think for about 2 years, they passed a constitutional amendment that a president can only be elected twice. Okay? And federal officials, congressmen and senators, can be in office forever and ever and ever, as we have seen with Robert Byrd, Strom Thurmond, Ted Kennedy. And I'm a liberal Democrat, and I was no big fan of Ted Kennedy. Okay? But as long as we do not have term limits on federal officials, those federal officials every single day, 2 years for congressmen, 6 years for senators, are always picking up the phone and seeking donations for their next campaign.
I agree.
That's just the nature of the beast. And whether they're Democrats or Republicans, they become beholden to the biggest contributors, and they try to do what their biggest contributors want. As an example, we have the Fanjul brothers in Florida. A man named Fidel Castro lives in their house, okay? They are the biggest sugar producers in the United States of America. Alfie contributes to the Democratic Party, and Pepe contributes to the Republican Party equal amounts, okay? And you keep up this ridiculous subsidy to sugar, and they don't need a sugar subsidy, but they get it. And of course, oil gets a subsidy too.
And the movie industry gets a subsidy, and they make multi-billions.
Absolutely. You're right. They do. They get big, especially from state governments. The movie industry gets big money. Okay.
It's ridiculous. Yep.
And also states give all sorts of incentives for businesses to move into their states. And I don't know. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, let's just take sugar as an example. You're never going to get rid of that sugar subsidy, because who's ever president, whether he's Republican or Democrat, he gets so much money from people like the Fanjuls. You're never going to get rid of that. And if you think subsidies are maybe not good, I don't know. I think
subsidies in most industries are not necessary.
Okay, so there you go. But as long as we do not have term limits on federal officials, we're cooked, because they're always going to do the bidding of their wealthiest contributors. There's just no way around that, because the only goal of a politician, in my opinion, is to get reelected. I don't think they try to do what's good for the country. They try to do what's good for them. Okay. Now, you would have to have a federal constitutional amendment to do that. And as you know, constitutional amendments have to go through Congress. Well, no congressman is going to vote to limit his tenure in office. Okay.
Right. No government will control itself. Yes.
Number 2, as long as you have the power of lobbyists, I just can't see where we're going. The Koch brothers are heavily involved in oil, and while they want to get less government, they're only too happy to get the, what is it? I forget, 6 billion or something in oil subsidies every year. And as long as you have lobbyists, you're never going to change the fact that the big boys are always looking for money from government, which to me is socialistic practices.
Well, let me give you a quick example why government is so anxious to subsidize big oil. Big oil makes 4 cents on the dollar. You know how much the government makes? About 40 cents on the dollar.
In state and local taxes and federal, yeah.
Exactly. So if people blame big oil, we should blame the government for contributing to big oil on both sides. But yeah, that's part of the problem. I mean, that's
Okay,
part of the problem.
now we have an institutional problem, Jake. Thanks to Mr. Scalia, I can't figure that guy out. We now have unlimited and anonymous contributions to political candidates. So, in other words, in my opinion, campaign contributions are legalized bribery. That's my opinion.
Why Scalia? I missed. I don't remember that.
He was the one that wrote the opinion in the Citizens United case.
I didn't read that, so that's why I missed that. But let's remember that.
And in my opinion, Jake, it's just legalized bribery, these campaign contributions.
Well, I agree. But look, Obama received overseas contributions, which is completely illegal. And he didn't specify sources, and nobody seemed to question him.
Okay.
That's a problem in itself.
Well, we've had corruption in politics for 200 something years.
Corruption, yes, but when you stray out doing things out in the open and refuse to specify how you came about those things, I mean, all the records are sealed. We're not allowed to see where this man came from, where he gets his money, whose contribution he accepts. I mean, we can't see anything. We can't even see.
Under the Supreme Court, Jake, they don't have to disclose it anymore.
Well, I mean, overseas contributions are not allowed at all. I mean, forget about where they came from. Overseas, they're not allowed at all.
That's not true. Under Citizens United, they are.
Really?
Oh,
I thought you're not allowed to get funding from overseas.
No, you can do that. You can get overseas funding now. You can get it from any source.
I thought any source within the United States of America.
No. That's the problem. We don't know what foreign interests and what foreign governments are giving the money because they can do it anonymously. That's the problem. Yeah. Okay, then the third reason that we're not going anywhere, you and I, is term limits on federal officials, lobbying and campaign contributions, and then people raise their eyebrows when I give them this one, but it's true. You have to stop the power of oil in this country. Oil controls this country in every way.
Okay, how do you get around oil? Explain to me, please. And wait, let me first say that you say oil controls everything in this country, and I agree, because without oil, without natural gas, we're not going to be able to move, we're not going to be able to produce. Now, you're saying oil, but oil industry makes less profit on the dollar than, let's say, iPhones or Apple. I mean, so we're blaming oil for controlling this country, but in reality, they actually make less in revenue than some of the other industries.
Well, you're talking about percentages. Now, Jake, yes. You've been to Florida, haven't you? You've been to Florida.
I've been to Florida a few times, yeah.
We have the biggest grocery store in Florida is Publix. I'm sure you've seen Publix.
You know what? I haven't been there for a while. I don't remember.
Well, anyway, in any state, do you know what the average percentage of profit is for the biggest grocery stores in the country?
Well, I used to work for A&P Corporate, and I know that they're penny pinchers.
Yes.
The grocery are penny pinchers, but let's not talk about grocery as compared to oil. Let's compare, let's say, other industries that are not being scrutinized, like, industries that make electronics or industries that make other items. Take some clothing industries. I mean, oil does not make a lot of money. Like I said, they only make about 4% on every dollar.
When you say scrutinized, do you mean that they should be regulated, these other industries?
No, I'm not saying about regulating or over-regulating. Every industry has regulations,
Yeah.
but oil industry, first of all, oil industry is being over-regulated because they're not allowed to drill where we can find more oil and not depend on foreign interests.
Yes.
Okay, so now oil industry is being demonized, let's say, because they're this big industry that control everything. But in reality, the oil industry itself does not make as much profit as other industries. And let's not compare them to grocery or retail, because in grocery, they penny pinch. I know that. I've been in grocery business.
Yeah. All right. Anyway,
Okay.
I don't know how you change it with those three things going on. I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know either, but term limits, I agree. Term limits, government, well, our favorite president, and I know you're going to laugh, Reagan said that the government will never control itself. So the government needs to be controlled. And the government works for us, not the other way around.
Unbelievable. Now, okay. All right. I agree with that. Okay.
I know you do. And I agree with term limits. I completely agree. Because people that do not care about their career, that they're set for life, will never curb themselves.
No. No. All right. Now, we talked about Mr. Reagan a little bit. I will grant you, in 1986, I hit a case for $6 million. And I got lucky because Mr. Reagan had reduced the average high wage earner, not the highest, not like if you were one of the Beatles or Elton John or something, but the average big earner was paying 50% of a federal tax. Mm-hmm. Mr. Reagan, President Reagan. Yeah, I don't mean that in a derogatory way.
No, I didn't. I actually couldn't vote for the man because I just became a citizen in '86.
Yes, okay. He had reduced the income tax rate down into the 30s somewhere. But don't forget, even President Reagan had, according to various talk shows from Fox to MSNBC, he increased the tax rate with Mr. O'Neill either 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11 times. I can never get an exact figure. Yes. So he did realize that you had to increase taxes.
No, he didn't do it like that. And if I remember correctly, and yeah. I mean, I don't mean to, because like I said, this is history that you probably remember better.
Not really.
Well, you lived there. I was just becoming a citizen.
Yeah.
But what I remember is Reagan made agreements that if they lower taxes, they will cut some spending, and then they will slowly, when the economy goes up, they will slowly raise some of the taxes. I believe that was the agreement because they had to play ball, and Reagan was great at playing ball with the other side. So what he did, he lowered taxes so the country can get back on track and can get back in shape. And then they slowly raised some of the taxes. So he did raise taxes, but it was part of the agreement that they had to make in order to make the taxes lower, to give a jump start. You don't give a jump start by raising taxes on so-called rich. Because if you raise taxes on so-called rich, and what we've seen here, people start to cut jobs because they don't have money to expand their company. They have lower income, lower revenues, and what they do, they start to shrink their company. And we've seen it in the past 4 years.
Well, see, that's where you and I disagree. Because every economic study shows when you increase taxes, jobs increase. Now,
which economic studies you're looking at? Hold on, sorry, Jim. Let me give you 3 examples in history where the taxes were lowered and the economy jumped up. Can I?
Oh, sure.
Okay. In the 1920s, Harding and then Coolidge, I believe, was after him, lowered taxes, and the economy jumped up.
And you saw what happened in October of 1929. It
has nothing to do with taxes. It has nothing
we had a depression.
Wait. Let's continue. Depression was for many other reasons, okay? But let's continue. Yes.
Okay.
One of your favorite presidents, I'm sure.
Yes.
And I like him too, JFK.
Yes.
He lowered taxes. What did he do? He increased the economy. He improved the economy. And President Reagan was not the first to do it, but he did it, and it improved our economy.
Well, you had a huge banking crisis in 1989, a few months after President Reagan got out of office. Huge.
Well, banking
Okay.
crisis has nothing to
All
do
right.
with
And in 1987, we had the second biggest market drop in history.
in where? I'm sorry, what year?
1987, while Mr. Reagan was president. Okay.
Stock market can go up or down regardless of the economy. Did you see stock market jumped up a couple of months ago? And even though our economy has not improved, stock market has almost like a life of its own.
Well, there's a reason for that, because the earnings and profits of the corporations are getting bigger and bigger.
No. Well, I mean, stock market, people succeed. People make money in the bad stock market. Do you agree? So if people decide to start buying stocks that are really down low and the stock market jumps up, it has nothing to do with the economy.
Well, we also have something called short selling in the United States, which contributes nothing to society. It just makes stock speculators money.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
I don't know all the details, but I know what short selling kind of is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare, and now, of course, some people that are in favor of Mr. Obama want to call it Obamacare. They're happy with it.
Obama calls it Obamacare.
Yes, right.
He wants to take pride in this.
Right. This is where I differ with you, but I have another perspective.
You have a different perspective.
No, yeah, I'm going to tell you what it is. Okay. Should everybody be entitled to affordable health care? I don't know. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. I know that the Tea Party had a town hall meeting and some guy yelled out, "Let them die, let them die."
Oh, no, I mean, there are people that will just say anything. But I mean, in all honesty, I was speaking at the Tea Party. Great bunch of people. They want freedoms. They want lower taxes. And they want people's personal responsibility.
Yes. Okay. Now, this is the deal. I believe, and I think if I sat here with anybody, including Morning Joe Scarborough, who's a fairly conservative guy, I believe that every political issue in the last 4 years has a racial tinge to it. You can take any single issue, and I will show you how it's racial. And I mean people of color. And I mostly mean African people of color. Okay. Now, this is how the Affordable Health Care Act came into existence, and let's quit kidding ourselves. In 1995, 1996, a bunch of Republican legislators in the House and in the Senate got together and said, "Hey, wait a minute. Were you in the emergency room last Saturday night? Did you see all those blacks sitting there getting that free health care? All the Chernays sitting there getting that free health care? Let's make it mandatory that everybody have health insurance, and if they don't have health insurance, then they can't go into the emergency room and get care."
Wait, you said 86, 87?
No, 95, 96.
Oh, 95, 96.
Yeah.
95, 96, It was Republican Congress.
Yes, and that is exactly what happened.
Wait, who was the president?
What was it, Clinton?
Okay, so now, can we only say that the Republicans were talking about it, or Clinton actually wanted to create a mandate himself? Because his wife been...
He was for it too.
Exactly. So let's not say Republicans also talked about the mandate. Well, Republicans actually try not to create any mandates, if you see that with Obamacare.
Well, back in 95, 96, they wanted it. Now, let's take this a step.
I don't remember how they wanted it, but they were playing ball because Hillary Clinton always wanted the mandate.
Let's take it a step further. In 1964, we had another Civil Rights Act. In 65, we had the Voting Rights Act. Johnson was in the back of his limousine leaving Congress, where he had just signed the voting rights bill. And he said, "I'm afraid I have just turned the South over to the Republican Party for a long time." That day,
That's not the only thing Johnson said. Wait, that's not the only thing Johnson said.
Yes.
If you remember, Johnson said very racial things too, and he was against that bill. He was against civil rights.
Well, I don't know if he was against it, but
he was against it. He wasn't going to sign it. He was literally politically pressured to sign it.
He made racial comments. Okay.
He made a lot of racial comments, and he wasn't going to sign it.
The day that he said that, there was not none. There was not one Republican senator in the old Confederacy, the 11 states. Now we have 2 Democratic senators left, Bill Nelson in Florida and that woman in Louisiana. Okay?
Okay.
The Republican Party, they just switched hats, and they became a ultra, just violently against, they're into race, and they're against the Democrats, and of course they hate Obama because he's black and a Democrat. So what happened now, Jake? This is what happened.
Well, you
comes in with the health care and says, I want what you wanted a few years ago, and they said, well, anything you want, we're against. That's why they were against the health care. So
you want me to speak?
Sure.
Okay. First of all, anybody that says that anything that people say against Obama is racial, it's a bunch of BS. And I will tell you why. Because I did not agree with Clinton just as many times as I do not agree with Obama. I'm just not agreeing with Clinton because his policies and his issues were different than what I would like to see. Now, who created mandate in the 90s? I mean, it was Clinton, and maybe Republicans agreeing with him because Hillary Clinton been pushing mandate since the day she was in any office, in any political office. Hillary Clinton always wanted to create a mandate in the public health care. Now, that's first thing. Second thing, do I disagree with Obama because he's a black man? Absolutely not. The first thing I said, that if Obama is a good president, I will be the first to admit I was wrong about him being a socialist. Now, my problem with Obama, that he is a socialist. Clinton liked America, and he tried to do things that were good for America. Now, if Clinton went into a lot of socialist policies, I would just be as upset about Clinton.
He didn't, though. He was a moderate president, Clinton.
He was a moderate president. That's why I never had a problem with him. Obama is a very to the left, ideological, socialist, anti-American person. Now, whether or not he's black, white, Asian, I couldn't care less. Now, people create a problem out of it because it's easy. Now, the fact that people say that it's bigotry and racism to question Obama is racism in itself.
Well, okay. but Jake, let me ask you one question before. Just let me ask you this. Outside of Obamacare, which I don't know if I agree or not, give me one other program which Obama has put through or brought up that's socialistic.
Obama is over-regulating businesses. Obama is letting EPA run the show. Obama is cutting basically our resources on oil and everything. You know how many on public property? You know how many he approved drilling permits? He approved a lot less than Bill Clinton and Bush and Reagan and all of them put together.
Oh no, he
lied in debates. He lied. You can check.
More than Bush.
No, please. I mean, just because he said that doesn't mean it's true. He approved a lot less, and there's statistics, and I saw those statistics. I don't remember the numbers.
You know, Jake, there are 7,000 permits out there that the oil companies aren't even using.
Okay, that part I don't know, but the problem is he has approved a lot less. Okay, I know that for sure.
Jake, that's not true. He approved more than Bush.
We can argue about it because I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I saw the numbers. After debates, I checked every number to see if he's lying, if Romney is lying, and Romney was right. He approved a lot less. And he said he approved a lot more, which you obviously just repeated. But trust me, I saw the numbers.
Well, you would agree with me the EPA was in existence before Obama became president.
Yes, but EPA is out of control right now, and Obama does not. I'm not saying EPA was created during Obama. EPA was created way before him, But now it's running out of control. Obama says he wants to help us get back on our feet, and he does everything the opposite.
But we got to have clean water and clean air, Jake.
Listen, I'm not arguing about that, but there's a right way to do things, and there's overdoing things. Okay? I mean, the whole global warming is a sham. I mean, those who preach global warming have no data. Al Gore is flying in a jet, in the same jet that he says that people should not use. Al Gore has a house that uses electricity up to $7,000 a bill a month. God bless him if he's a capitalist.
But Jake, you and I know that the polar ice cap is melting. They have satellite pictures.
Not. Absolutely not. First of all, listen, wait. I'll tell you, I did some research on this. Can I say something?
You can say whatever you want.
Do you know? Okay, first of all, they say polar bears are disappearing. Do you realize that they're disappearing in one area and they're reappearing in another?
But the polar ice cap I'm talking about, it's melting, Jake, honest to God.
It's
even Russia has stated they're going to be able to take 4,000 miles off the delivery route because now they can go through where ice used to be.
Did we create Ice Age? Honestly, do you realize that Earth goes through cycles? Remember in the 70s, everybody was screaming, the Earth is cool and the Earth is cool and we're all going to die. Now the Earth is warming and now it's cooling again. Every 25 to 30 years since the Earth was ever created, it's been going through cycles. Okay? Now, if the glacier is melting, it's not because of us. And now,
Jake, you may be, I don't think you are, but you may be correct. It may be cyclical.
I read about these things a lot.
But it still exists, whether it's cyclical or not.
But it doesn't mean we created this.
Okay.
Just because some species disappears or reappears, or some species go up and down, or migrate, it has nothing to do with us.
Okay, but we still may have global warming.
Okay, so global warming according to what? According to Al Gore, who wrote a book and who says that we should change the way we live?
Pictures of what's happening. Now, just
global climate change. Every time the name changes. I can't keep up with the name changes.
Let's give you an example which you're going to like. You're going to like this example.
Okay, I will like it.
There's a place called Glacier National Park, and I can't remember if it's in Montana or Wyoming.
After this, I'll finish my point.
In 1865, they had 150 glaciers, okay? Today, they have 25 glaciers. But you're going to like this part of the story. You're going to like this. In 1865, guess what happened?
Yeah, what?
It was the end of the Little Ice Age. So that goes hand in hand with what you're saying, that it's cyclical and it's not man-made. But Jake, regardless of whether it's man-made or cyclical, there ain't no more glaciers there. It happened.
No, wait. But the whole hysteria is that, once again, socialism. Obama talks about we should be more environment friendly. We should do this and this and this. And now, Al Gore praises Obama, obviously, because Al Gore is going to sell another book and make more money in the capitalist system, preaching that we should all curb back and we should cut back on what we do. Now,
Al Gore's made $100 million since he got out of office.
Yes, he made a lot of money on global warming hysteria. But Obama now is feeding into that hysteria, and Obama now is basically giving EPA an open policy. Wait. I'm not done. Let me just finish.
Jake, there's a problem. My show is done.
Your show's done? Can I finish one point?
Yes, quickly.
Okay. Quickly. Yes. Obama says we should go into windmills. EPA says windmills will kill a bird. So they work against each other now, and it shows you socialists can't even decide on their own what's right and wrong for the policies. Okay, your show is done. Thank you, and I'm going. Let's listen to the book.
That was the fastest hour I ever had. I want everybody to read Jake Danishevsky's book, AfterTastes and Tales of Russia. AfterTastes and Tales of Russia. I want to thank you, Jake, for coming on the show, and I want to say to all our fans, Das Vidanya, Yavasla Blue, Paka Paka. Bye-bye.
i-netradio.com. i-netradio.com.